All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's kick it. All right. Yeah, last night's session on the S&P was kind of running around flatline. We were managing just to hold up the entire time until Janet Yellen decided to say those magic words, 6 months. And that really got things started to sell off a little bit. I'm actually really surprised, to be quite honest, that we only sold off 11 points in the S&P. Totally blows my mind. But the market continues to outperform all expectations, so I guess I shouldn't be so surprised. All the asset classes were down across the board. The Fed did continue their tapering with another $10 billion per month of reduction in the asset purchasing program, I think down to $55 billion a month now. So they're taking that away, and they're talking about, 6 months now, which is, would really put us into probably, the beginning to middle part of 2015. So it's a little bit sooner than people expected. Obviously, you got gold selling off. You got a little bit of risk off in the markets to an extent, and that was obviously the reason for the pullback. In Asia, we saw some follow through. Nothing too bearish. The Nikkei is down now 1.65%. Hang Seng down about 1.5% at the moment. So. We obviously saw some follow through on the back of that. And like I said, I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't see more in the U.S. session, but we'll continue to monitor that going forward. I think also what kind of kept some of the selling in Japan maybe a little bit more muted was the fact that the yen actually weakened against the U.S. dollar, but that's obviously because the dollar was rallying relative to all the other currencies. So. Anyway, moving on today, we've got Investec out with this quarter 4 2014 sales or 2013 sales and revenue call, and then we've got Nike in the States, a bit of a non-event. In terms of market data, we've got the German PPI numbers out right at our open. We've got current account balance in Italy. We've got initial jobless claims in the States and continuing claims, which are obviously the big ones, followed by Bloomberg Consumer Comfort, Philly Fed, Business Outlook, existing home sales, and leading index. So we'll obviously be watching for the initial jobless claims. But I think that Janet Yellen dropped a bit of the bomb last night anyway, so I don't see us taking a whole lot out of initial jobless claims numbers today. All right, let's jump into the maps. We're going to keep it a little bit short and sweet, and the reason why is, I spent last night, before we came in this morning, hunting for some shorts in the market, and it just was difficult to really come up with a whole lot that were really supported technically. But what I wanted to show here, obviously, just shorten this up a touch, but you can see here the gold price really breaking down yesterday. Was already really offered before Janet Yellen, and then that was just adding fuel to the fire when she came out and spoke. We really dropped that 1350 level hard, so there's a bit of a head fake breakout there. And right now it's starting to look like we're going to reverse back down closer to the 1300 level. On the back of that, we saw Anglo Gold finally make a bit of a reversal. I'm going to show the U.S. price here. We'll shorten it up a little bit more. So this is the U.S. price. Obviously, we followed a little bit more on the back of that action, and we dropped support, which has been an unbelievably consistent trend line going back to the beginning of the year. Bounced off its lows, down around, I think, $11.20, and traded all the way up over $19. So we had a huge rally there. We rallied about 85%, I think, off the lows, 85% off the lows. We really dropped, and we dropped it hard. It was a big red bar yesterday. So I think that's important. Obviously, in terms of the U.S. price, we'll probably be looking to come back down to test some sort of support around 1620. In South Africa, we'll have a quick look at that as well. Same sort of thing. We definitely dropped... We dropped support yesterday here, and we didn't even take the big brunt of the selling. But we didn't close below 200, which is a bit frustrating, but obviously we're going to get down below that today. And then today, the level we're going to look at here is about somewhere between 160 and 164 is where I would say definitely maybe around 164 is where we're going to look for a pullback at some point here to AngloGold. Maybe not a pullback that far, kind of in one move, but that's what we'll be looking for long term, which would be closer to a 50% retracement of this last little move as well. All right, moving on. Let's have a look at Naspers, which Naspers was a freaking wild ride yesterday. You can see here really dropped back below that 1180 support. We talked about that yesterday. Unfortunately, didn't make hardly any money out of that intraday yesterday, which is quite frustrating. But once we dropped 1180, we had a kind of a long fight there around 1180, 1184, and once it finally dropped, it really just imploded, trading down about $30 off of that level, and then bouncing a little bit into the close. But 1180 is still going to be our level. I think obviously on the back of those numbers yesterday, Tencent did trade a bit better in Hong Kong. So I would expect a higher open out of Naspers today, but it's got to get back above 1180 and hold. This thing has fallen quite a bit. I mean, it traded at 1350, so we're already looking at maybe a 15% pullback at these sort of levels. But if we do continue to sell off, we're going to be probably looking more at the 1100 level. For the next level of support, and then on down to, call it 1041 or something along those lines. So keep an eye out for this one today. I'll probably be very active again today after people have had a little bit more of a chance to digest those earnings. All right, the next one we're going to look at is Anglo's, and really what I wanted to show here is, let's actually look at it on the 30-day. I think would be a better way to look at it. Yeah, and you can see there, really we've had this long downtrend over the past couple weeks, and we really have kind of made a bit of call it a bear flag here over the past 4 or 5 sessions, and yesterday we dropped it hard. We didn't go below the lows of the last week's worth of trading, but I think if we drop below 245, this thing can accelerate to the downside. And what we'll look at here is maybe a bit of a level. I mean, you can see here it looks somewhat similar to what we did up there, same sort of thing. We have this big green bar, and the very next day or 2 days later, we just absolutely puked it back up. We're going to be looking for that same sort of thing. Trendline support, if you back it out a little bit, it's going to be coming in more along the lines of $230, and then you got the 200-day moving average at 235. So I would say, in the short term, we could definitely trade down here. I think a lot of guys loaded the boat on these things, and then we had huge reversals in the copper price and the iron ore price. Obviously, the copper price, which I didn't show, probably should have a look at. Was literally, and yesterday was the most incredible action. You can see here on the wick, we totally bombed out of this this bear flag after this huge down leg, moving from north of 320 all the way down to kind of 292 or so. We started to put in a little bit of a bear flag here, and we totally puked yesterday, and we traded down to about 288. Some guys were talking about Russian margin calls. I think it was probably more to do with the Chinese follow on that the Chinese property development company that went bust yesterday. Either way, we definitely found some sort of buying around these levels now, and I think things possibly would have changed if we can get above $3 on the copper price. Then I think we may maybe start to see a little bit of support for some of these Billies and Anglos and things come into the market. But until then, I would be a little bit hesitant on them at the moment. All right, and then the last one we're going to show is Astral Foods, which one we don't show often, obviously, but you can see here this thing has been in an incredible downtrend for the last 2 or 3, probably 3 or 4 months, north of $100. Literally probably 25 negative sessions in a row, all the way down to $80. We're kind of consolidating here and looking very likely to break down out of this today. It drops below 80. I think we'll be looking for a quick $4 down to about 76. And that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot.